The Kozak-2 vehicle was designed to be mine resistant and ambush protected, an MRAP class vehicle. It's a beast of a vehicle, and this kit from ICM is a beast of a kit. Find out how I started off with it right here on Gary's Stuff. Hi there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today, I'm starting the build of the Kozak-2 MRAP class vehicle in 1/35th scale from ICM. Now, it's a big kit. There's a lot of parts, so I've split the build video into two. This is the first half where we'll build the chassis and the interior, and in the second part to come, you'll see the whole lot, everything else put together, the turret, the wheels, everything, and of course the outside. The whole thing buttoned up. If you'd like to see when that video comes out, then what you really need to do is subscribe to the channel, hit the bell there, and you'll be notified of all my future content as it's published. And of course, anything you like on my channel, please do give it the old imperial thumbs up on the like button below, because every like counts. If you'd like to support the channel in a bit more of a concrete way, you can do that through Super Thanks, by becoming a channel member, or by using any of my online partner programs. Now, just for the sake of transparency, I should point out this was a review sample sent to me for free by ICM themselves. However, they haven't attached any sort of riders about what I should say or sent a script or any of that old nonsense. They're not paying me for this video. All they want is an honest review of the kit. And that's what they're going to get, and I hope that's what you want, because that's what you're going to get too. Let's make a start then on this very large 1/35th scale vehicle, the Kozak-2 from ICM. Okay, another day, another start of a new kit. What fun. Right, this is the rear leaf suspension for the Kozak-2. There's two parts need to fit together here. But first, you can just see there's like this ejection pin, I should say. Just stands a little probe. That's really not going to sit perfectly unless you just sand that off. There's one there, and there's one there. Okay, so we go. They've been sanded down, and then these pieces can't fit together, like so. And just a quick dab of glue. I tend to use extra thin cement for this because it gets in between the parts really well. It kind of capillary action pulls it along these seams, and it makes them easier to fit completely together. And also, I think it does a better sort of plastic weld effect as well on here, so it sort of melts the edges a bit and welds them together. These will just need a bit of sanding down when they're joined. This part has to be put together. It's part of the front suspension. Don't ask me what. And yet, I know the basics of how vehicles work, okay, but sometimes this could be like a power steering assistance pump or something. I don't know. It's something to do with the front suspension. That's all. That's because that's where it goes. That's all I know about it. It's front suspension. Okay. Don't hate me for it. That's just the way life is. I don't know what every single bit of a truck is called. The front suspension leaf spring is already half attached to the chassis rail, so we just put the other half on, and again just a bit of extra thin cement just to bind it all in place. Okay, then there's this piece here that goes into this slot, goes into this slot here. So excellent. Then this little thing we made earlier goes into a slot here. This plate goes on to these two little stubby little points here. The difficult thing is actually keeping it on there whilst you're moving this stuff around. It's not actually difficult to fit. It's difficult to do it when you're trying to film it. Okay, so here we go. They just clip on there and there. Fantastic. And then at the other end, the rear suspension arm, or rear suspension itself, rear suspension, goes on there. Okay, so that's one of the chassis rails complete. Do exactly the same for the other side. Next, we have these gas bottles to go together. I'm going to be bold and suggest these might be something to do with the air assisted brakes and all the rest of it. So like they're air accumulators or something like that, I guess. They go inside the rear axle-ish. So I'm presuming there's something to do with the brake system or something like that. These gas bottles go onto a cross member of the chassis like so. Make sure these valves or whatever point downwards together. Next is what I like to think is a transfer box for the four-wheel drive. It comes in two halves like this. Then there are mountings either side with bars that fit into the slots on the side of the box. Right, so now we have all the components we need for our principal chassis build. So I like to lay them out as they are supposed to go, which way up they're supposed to go, which way round they're supposed to go, all of that. Just double check with the instructions. So essentially what you're going to do is put them all in, that one on, and it's done. That's the theory at least. So we'll make a start. There it all is. It sits together very nicely with no dramas at all. To make sure it's square, just measure across the diagonals of the chassis. If the diagonals are the same, the chassis is square. Okay, this is the base of the engine, the sort of bell housing for the clutch, bottom of the gearbox and stuff like that. There's not a full engine on this because they haven't put an engine in it. It's an MRAP, I guess. You know, there's enough detail in there. You don't need to worry about putting an engine in as well. So anyway, two halves of the bottom of the engine go together pretty straightforwardly. And then the sump, engine sump, goes on the base here, like so. And we just put that on. That's the engine sump goes on there. Then the sump and gearbox assembly can go into place here on the base plate of the vehicle. Now we've got to put this drive shaft in here first. Then the chassis goes on top. The drive shaft engages with the transfer box in the middle. Then we find the pegs that hold it all in place. There's two there. There's two at the back. So there we go there. on either side, and then it just sort of sits on the front there. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just, let's zoom out a bit. There you go, we can just clamp off the chassis rails where they meet the deck and let them dry. You can start putting the front axle together now. This comes actually in two parts, and then there's going to be some other bits and pieces around, but essentially the axle's in two parts. Onto this hub here, there's a piece here, possibly steering arm, something like that, that goes in. Then the hubs can go onto the axle, like so. They will actually only go one way around. These tabs here are very slightly offset, so they will actually only go this way around, which I think is very good. Yeah. And then these, someone's going to say, oh, you don't know what they are. No, I don't know what they are. They look like anti-roll bars, but probably not. I don't know what they are. But they go on top here. That's what I know. What I know is they're a part number 53, I think, and C53, and they fit on here. That's all I know about these things. There we go. Like so. Okay, so this axle, then there's these little sort of rectangular nubs on the top of the leaf springs here. The axles sit on top of those. There is a drive shaft. Which way does it go? That way around. Goes this way around on here, so maybe we'll put that on there first, and then in there, in there, in there. Okay. Then on each side, I'll just check which way around they go. They flare outwards. Okay. On each side, there's a piece which the fork goes over the end of that, what I think is an anti-roll bar, and then connects to the chassis rail down here. So I'll make it a bit clearer. So it connects to the chassis rail here, and then just sits around the end of what I think is the anti-roll bar here. And there's one on the other side as well. So it fits on the chassis rail there, and then around the end of the whatever thingy here. Okay, that's the front axle in. Just a quick thing. This here is where the power steering box goes. So a steering box goes in here. You put that on really early doors when you're actually assembling this chassis rail. You put it in, and I think that's a massive mistake to do that, because as you can see, it's going to get broken out. ICM have a habit of this. Airfix have a habit of this. You're making stuff, you're putting stuff in too early. This now is when I need to assemble. Now the steering arm here goes in, and it goes into this, and everything will be fine. But I now have to try and put this back on because it's broken off. So if you're building this, don't put in this sort of steering box that you make really early on in the proceedings. Don't assemble that into the chassis rail until you actually need to build the steering link, because it just will get broken. So the arm goes onto that steering linkage there on the chassis. And had this been a normal situation, I could have just popped it in there, but I can't because it's broken, so I need to connect that first. So then I'll put that into there. Okay, like that. Yeah, that'll do me. So it's connected on the arm here, and it's connected to the servo here. There's a two-part sump guard. The first part goes in here on the chassis rail. So then which way round? This one out. Then the other part, the sump guard, clips in here like so. Okay, it doesn't seem to connect, which is kind of weird, but okay, if that's how you want to do it. There we go. This arm here goes into, there's a small like square little pit on each back of each of these hubs. That's where that goes, like so. Okay, and then we have a damper here that goes into this mounting here on the side, so, and connects to the side of the arm there. For the rear hubs, we put this part on. I think these probably are drum brakes rather than discs or something like that. Oh, sorry, that was a cat becoming energetic, making a lot of noise. The rear axle goes together in two halves as well, but then there are a couple of other plates that go on. Just a little dab of glue here and there. There is one here. So, one here like so. Okay, these are going to be where the dampers connect to for the rear suspension. Then the hubs can go onto the rear axle like so. So now the rear axle can go on, so put the prop shaft in, which goes into the back of the gearbox there. We put the axle firmly onto the springs, and then we've got a couple of dampers to go in. These go into these points on the chassis bed, well the vehicle bed rather, the vehicle bed. They go on the bottom there and just clip onto there. So, and the other one goes into a hole on the bottom, or the underside of the bed there, and clips onto the mounting there. And that's the rear axle in. There's another cross member needs to go in. Just a couple of parts to put together first, of course. Then that just sits across the chassis rails, like so. And finally, there's a towing shackle that goes in here, like so. And there's a handle that goes into the side up here. Like so. And finally, there's a anti-roll bar, I think, sits up under this plate here, and then connects to the tops of these two bars that stick up from the chassis rails. The nice thing is, when it goes together relatively easily, it gives you more confidence. You've actually got everything in the right place. Now, how misplaced that confidence is another matter. But you know what? I genuinely think this has gone together superbly well so far. So there it is. That's I think pretty much the chassis work done. Looks pretty impressive, I have to say. Looks all very nice. It's got to a point now, the next bit of the instructions say to start painting seats. So I think the best thing for me to do now is to let this all set up properly. It actually sits on all four wheels. Amazing. Let this set up properly. Let it all the glue go off and set. And then prime it, spray it black. Certainly the undersides, all of the undersides, spray black, and then maybe even varnish them with a satin, or maybe a matte, maybe a satin for the moment. Then I can do some colour washes and some muds and some stuff like that in there, just a bit of grime in there, basically. And then I will do the top as well. I'll do the top black. Maybe I'll just do the whole lot black and satin finish for the moment and see how we go from there. I'm thinking it's looking pretty darn good, actually. I'm really happy with it so far. Going to start on the interior now, the seats, and we paint the faces of them in this grey-green, and the backs are going to be painted in black. I'm going to start putting these seats together, the seat sides. Now, don't get confused by this. I was at first, and I spent ages trying to fit them. There's two little tabs here. These are not to fit the seat against. The seat fits against this top line here. These tabs are for the front and back portion of the base to sit against when they get inserted. So don't worry about them for a moment. Worry about this bit here and get that lined up with the side of the seat. Like that. Okay, the base parts just go together quite straightforwardly. Yeah. This is the back. It goes the other way up there. The back, they go on those tabs there. And then at the front, there's another piece, and the two holes here for the handle, adjusting handle, go at the bottom. So they slot up in there. So you can see the alignment of the sort of concertina, if you like, of the stuff under the suspension of the seat. Goes all the way around like that. And these seats, top of the seat sits in. There's a couple of pins there that it can revolve on. And just sit in the top like that. Then finally, there's the handle that goes in here. I guess this is like the length adjuster, handle position adjuster. For the seat, let that all set together, and then we can go around touching up all of the colours, the blacks, and then do the other seat. There is this incredibly small, I'm guessing it's a gear lever, or shift it into automatic, or maybe it's a brake lever, I don't know, but it's incredibly small. That part comes in two halves. Anyway, it needs to go onto the center console, like so. Really cool if you had a couple of beverage cans to go in there, wouldn't it, as well. Then these seats can go into the front of the cabin, like so. Touch up around the grey-green and the backs, and everything's cool. Onto the controls part of the cabin, and first of all we're going to put in the pedals. Then there's the cover for the steering wheel. Goes on their steering wheel, sort of sits on the front there. There's this piece that goes into the back of the steering wheel. So that hole will line up with the peg on the dashboard assembly to hold the wheel in place. There's a couple of stalks that sit on the steering assembly here. These are going to be for things like windscreen wipers and indicators, stuff like that. Then the steering wheel assembly can go on the top, like so. Although I'm tempted, I'm tempted to leave this off only because it's going to be really tricky to put the decal for the instruments there if I put this on now. So I won't put this on just yet. What I will put on now is the drive selector. I don't know if this is actually a diff lock or whether it's the two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive selector, whichever it is. It's part of the gearing mechanism, so it goes on there. Do you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to put the steering wheel on now. I'm sure I can get behind that to put the decals on later. What I have done is stuck a bit of spare frame on the back here so that it can be held for spraying black when I get around to doing that next. And then this can be just taken off later on. So what I've done here is, I'll find something I can point with that's not going to do any damage. I've put in the decals for the instrument cluster here, for the switches and bits. I'm guessing this bit goes here. There's nothing in the instructions to tell you where these bits go, so I'm guessing that bit goes there. If it doesn't, my apologies. I've also given it a dry brush, a very gentle dry brush, just to pick out some of these edges, not to make them look dirty necessarily, just to pick them out, because otherwise it's just plain black. All these things do tend to get a bit lost otherwise. But that's kind of nice. I'm very happy with that on the edges of the pedals as well down there. That's cool. On the main truck, I've also dry brushed over the center console here, again, to pick out some detail, give it some structure. Now, before the instrument cluster goes on, I'm just going to make sure I can line up where the pedals go to give those a bit of a dry brush with some metal, some silver or aluminium or something like that. A few bits and pieces around here as well to indicate they've been used a lot. And then I'll also put some mud into here, just a muddy wash to give it the impression of people with muddy feet getting in and out, which after all, they would do. Right, when we're dry brushing metallics, we need a paint with a really, really, really fine powder dispersal in it, really finely ground powder, because otherwise it's just going to look horrible. So always have a bit of some moron in a very loud backfiring car just gone past. I don't know why kids do it. Kids, and probably 30-somethings, idiot. Don't know why they do it, but anyway. So yeah, you want a very fine powder dispersal, because otherwise it's not going to show very well, and it will make a mess. It won't pick up on the highlights as well as it could. Always keep a little bit sprue of plastic here, just to brush it against, just to double check how much paint is on, how fine it is, and how well dispersed it is. Always, it's a bit too heavy now. Just keep brushing, keep brushing, keep brushing. Eventually you get to a point where you think, yeah, okay, that's enough. And then you can go onto the model. A bit heavier here, because this is where the pedals are. So the driver will have his feet there, and then up there for the over to the entrance doors. Okay. There we are. It's kind of difficult to see in this light. Let's see if it works better that way. There you go. So you can see, just want those patches of worn, the top of this crisscross pattern just worn off slightly. And that's what I'm looking for. And now I'm also going to let that dry, and then put a bit of a wash of mud into there as well. This is something I'll be doing with, of course, the rest of the vehicle later on. Okay, so here it is. I've just used a weathering powder, mud powder. It's Humbrol, actually, brown earth, I think it is. I just sort of stippled it into here, and just sort of going over it again, just to bring back out some of those highlights from the worn planking, decking, whatever you call it. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. So when the console goes in, you can see it looks like mucky, like someone's actually been inside it. I might actually put a little bit of mud onto the pedals. I don't know, maybe not. Okay, so I can fit this in now, and then get on with the rest of the interior of the truck. There's this fold-away step to create. I suspect, I'm going to swear to it, but I suspect this is when they want to get up into the turret. It's like a stairway into the turret. I'm tempted to have that down, but I'll see how it all fits together. Anyway, the instructions says have it up, so maybe I should just do what I'm told. Have it in place like that. And then glue these together. And there's a couple of little buckles that go into these sort of things here. There's these tiny little bits that go into those, one on each side. And just glue all those together. We're going to do, just for the moment, I'll paint the bottoms here black, but what I'm also going to do is do a bit of wear and tear on these. Now, I had a look at a few pictures, and I can see this kind of like sort of materially, sort of vinyl-y sort of material. What happens, it seems to go pale where it's been worn out by use. So I'm just going to put some pale colour like into the sort of the bit of shoulder area, I guess it is really. This is like a buff coloured oil paint. It's an Abteilung oil. I'm just going to work it in a little bit. I haven't varnished these. See, this is straight on top of the acrylic, and just gives it a bit of a shine. Also a bit of a brightens it up a little bit. You see what I mean? Just on. I think most of the wear on these things is going to be on the shoulder area and down both sides as well. It's not so much in the middle, like the the back there. That's not relatively going to be all that much bothered. I'll do the same with the seats as well, sort of thing. Put where on the seat is most of the wear going to be. If you've got an old chair somewhere, you can check it out for yourself, of course, where most of the wear is. But I'm going to put it mainly shoulders and sides on the back. And just sort of work in your, and also gives kind of nice kind of like a sheen to it as well, which is quite cool. Which some of these plastics and fibers do get after time. The seats, all the seats, are basically of this form with the sort of folding seat back, essentially. They also all have the side and head restraints or bars to protect if you're sort of juggling around the countryside. These sort of fit on here. Try and show you how it's done. Fit on there, and then there's one on each side. Then there's a top piece. Let's get some tweezers. There we go. Just to show you roughly what it is. It's a top piece that kind of sits. Yeah, it sits on there, doesn't it? Kind of like that, I think. So you've got one of these on each side, and then this bit. It's quite a complex thing to put together. It's going to take some time, but I'll put one together, and hopefully that will make some sense. And then I can get on with the other 7. Okay, so we've got the 2 sidebars on. I'm using regular glue on this only because it's got some grab and it will hold things in place while I'm messing around here. Then you've got a top bar, and then these sidebars have got to meet up with that top bar and hold it in place, which is kind of fun. There we go, like that. Okay, now I haven't painted all of this side, obviously, you can see. What I'm doing is I'm painting most of the bar black, but then these sort of padded bits I'm doing in rubber black. I just wanted a bit of differentiation between the two. This is like an anodized black metal, and then a sort of a padding on the outside. So I'm leaving the padding, I'm going to do like a rubber black on the padding, and the rest of the metal is just pure black. Okay, so that's fine. I'm going to leave that alone, and then I've got 7 more of these to do. Here I'm putting some of the grey-green onto these seats for the KOZAK-2 vehicle, and you'll notice it just picks up over the black really well. The density of the colour here is very, very nice. The 2 seats at the front of the cabin, these have these mounting legs here and this support structure on the back. Just top up the paint on the restraints here, the rubber black on the padded areas in particular. The seats for the rest of the compartment have backs that fit onto the base here. Each seat has a pair of hip restraints as well that fit to the base of the unit, like this. When we've painted up the base of all these seats, put the waist or hip guards on, painted them as well. There's a couple of mountings that go in here. These are what connects it to the floor and eventually, I guess, connect it to the roof. So 2 of those to go in. Okay, then I've got this on a couple of bits of wood just to keep it up because I don't want the tail of this post touching the ground just yet. So we can then start loading up the seats, the backs onto the seats. Now, this sort of angle here, that's the bit that fits into the slot, not the front bit here. That fits into the slot there, and if you like, this front bit sort of goes into that hole in front of the rail there. So that's what we're going to put these into. Kind of like so. So we can assemble the rear of the cab now. First thing to go in is the step up to the gun. You see I've put mud on the actual step itself. When it folds down, it's going to get muddy with people standing on it. So that kind of slots in behind the main seats here and kind of sits upright like so. Let's go the front seats here. They just sit vertically on the floor on their mountings. They will stay there. They will sit there. And we're going to go around and sort of touch up everything that we can see that's not quite painted properly yet in a minute. And then finally the 6 seats at the very rear in the main part of the cabin. They go into the holes on the floor here. And that is the interior of our KOZAK-2. Finished, obviously, you got to do the interior walls and stuff like that, but that's all the seating. I'm going to go around it, just touching up the bits and pieces that I've missed out, little bits of paint. You know, when you're sort of brush painting with matte, sometimes it's actually quite easy to miss little bits. And then that will be that, and then we can get on with the actual body shell. So there it is. That's a lot of work to get to the stage we're at, but my goodness, it's worth it. I mean, the fit on this kit is just phenomenal, I have to say. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, I hope you have, please do remember, give it the old imperial thumbs up on the like button below because every like counts. And if you'd like to check out all my future content, including part 2 of this build video, then subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll get a notification every time I publish something new. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope to see you again very soon on the channel. Take good care of yourselves and goodbye.